I started my career with the Metropolitan Police in 1987. I was assigned to the Lower Basin, or the Boston Barracks now, in Boston, next to the Museum of Science. I stayed there for 10 years of my career, and then moved on to the Andover Barracks. I stayed in Andover for a while until I got promoted to sergeant. And when I got promoted to sergeant, I got sent to the Leominster Barracks. You get transferred when you get promoted. So I'm at the Leominster Barracks for a year or two. And then 9/11 happened, and they needed bodies back east, so I got transferred to the Revere Barracks. So I found myself in Revere for about a year, ended back up in Andover. They needed a body or a sergeant down in the Medford Barracks, so they sent me down in Medford, and I was there for about 6 years and studying for lieutenant. I finally made lieutenant and got transferred to the Holden headquarters in C Troop as a lieutenant, as a shift commander, and spent 4 years as a shift commander before I was promoted to barracks commander at C4 Leominster, and I spent the last 2 years of my career there in Leominster Barracks. It's a pretty simple story why I became a law enforcement officer, and I write it in my book. I just needed a job with a pension. I had a wife and 2 kids, and I was very young. I was 19 years old with 2 kids. So my labor job that I was working at $3.75 an hour wasn't cutting it. So I started taking promotional tests, and I lucked out on a police exam, and I got a 99. And I was notified. I was on the Brookline police list because I lived in Brookline at the time, and I was number 3 on the list, so I knew I was going to get a job in Brookline. But I got notified by the Metropolitan Police. I had no idea what the Metropolitan Police were, but I asked some friends around the state what's MDC Police, and they said go for it. There's about 500 to 600 guys in that job. The opportunities are unbelievable. They had their own helicopter, canine, boats. They had detectives. They had everything, every unit they were involved in. So I jumped at it. And I started my career February 2nd, 1987, my journey in the academy. So I was a very good kid growing up. I had a big mouth, but and an attitude problem, as the nuns would tell me. But I was a good person. I never committed crimes or anything, so I never really got involved with the police. I didn't have much involvement with them. I was in a motor vehicle accident on 128 one time, and a trooper showed up and he wrote the accident up. So I really didn't have much involvement with the police at all. Nor did I ever want to be a police officer. My father was a Boston fireman. So he was my hero growing up. He saved so many lives, my father. So I kind of want to be a fireman like him, or a police officer, one of the two, but just to get a pension and feed my family. I had a lot of respect for police officers, like I still do today. So.
Is there a reason you chose the police department over the fire department?
I chose the police department because there was a lot more opportunities. Firemen are great people, and they have a great job, but you're assigned to one engine or one ladder truck and that's it. And you don't go drive the truck out by yourself, and you know what I mean? It's a great job, and they're great people, and they save lives, and we love them. It's a brotherhood with them also. But the police department definitely offers far more opportunities. You can transfer to different stations or barracks. You meet a lot of different people along the way, a lot of different assignments. It's much better. It's a much, for me, because I couldn't sit still. I don't think I would have done it great at the fire department. The police department was it for me.
Okay. Can you kind of talk about your experience with that, from going to the Mets? From the Mets to the state police?
Sure. So I don't know when it was, sometime around 1990, the discussion started with Governor Weld about merging the police departments. Well, we didn't listen to it, and stuff like that never happens, right? So lo and behold, it did happen. And in 1992, the Metropolitan Police became defunct, and along with the registry and the Capitol, and we were now the state police. So it was a very tough transition for all our guys. Most of the guys didn't even want to wear the uniform. Every one of our guys that I know at the Lower Basin Station and everywhere I know voted against it. We didn't want to merge. I would never want it to merge. But once we merged, here we are, going to make the best of it, right? So you make the best of it, but it was a tough transition. I mean, we weren't them, and we didn't want to be them, and they didn't want to accept us, and we don't blame them for that. I never blamed them for disliking us and singling us out as not real troopers and all this other stuff they did to us. It was bad. It went on for years and years and years, and you just knew that you just weren't one of them. And we weren't in the hierarchy of the state police. So when the transfers came out, who's the bottom of the list? The Mets. We didn't fare too well. So there was a lot of discrimination. We weren't a protected class, so we couldn't say anything about it. But all my Metro police officers that are listening to this interview, and some of the honest state police officers that were there, knows that we weren't treated that well. And basically, that's all I want to say. I don't want to get into the minutia of it and start, he said this and they said that. It's all water under the bridge. Some of my best friends are stateies and started out as stateies. And when they finally transferred out of A Troop, boy, I was treated like gold in C Troop. We were just all officers together and troopers together. And I had a great experience. And that's where it turned around for me. So, yeah, I don't want to go over the bad stuff, but I'll never forget it. We weren't treated that well.
So you had 3 incidents where your cruiser was hit.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about this?
Sure. I was my first one. I was on the Metropolitan Police. I was on the Central Artery. Someone was in what we call the S turn up there. It was very dangerous. It was raining one night. I think this was in 1990, somewhere around 1990, 1991. I was stopped in the left lane behind a vehicle that had crashed, that spun out, and just sitting there waiting for the tow truck with my lights on. And I got struck from behind by a gentleman in a Lincoln Town car at 55 miles an hour. And he said he never saw me. So I got struck head on, whatever, 55 miles an hour. Sent me to the hospital. A couple of days there, I was diagnosed with a ruptured disc in my back. So the doctor told me, you'll be in pain. It's not going to get better, but you'll be able to live with the pain. But you'll move on past it. So that's it. I chalked up one scar. One battle mark was that cruiser accident. And then I got on the state police, and it was sometime in 1994. I was commuting back to the Lower Basin from my home, and I was stopped on a secondary highway, taking a left turn to try to get on the highway. Stopped, directional on, and some lady in a Chevy Blazer hit me at 45 miles an hour. Sent me to the hospital again. That time I got a ruptured disc in my neck and another one in my back. So things aren't getting better. Strike 2, right? That lady said she never saw me. And she also said on the scene, what the hell was I doing stopped in the middle of the road? Well, when you're trying to get on the highway, that's stopped in the middle of the road. Yeah, okay, couldn't get through to her. But anyways, that was the second one. So things were stacking up on me injury-wise, right? So the third one was the worst. It was 1996. Some lady had pulled over in Andover. She was on 93 southbound, and she was just over a little rise. And I remember telling her, so we'll wait for the tow truck, get out of your car, get over the guardrail in case someone hits us, because we're in a kind of not a blind spot, but over the hump. Well, boy, did I call that one. For about 2 minutes later, all I heard was screeching tires. And all I did was have time to look in my mirror, not the rear view, the side door mirror, saw the car coming at me at 100 miles an hour, and I held the steering wheel. Well, the guy hit me at close to 100 miles an hour, caved the trunk in so bad and pushed the car forward 30 feet, hit her car 30 feet away, totaled her car. And when I hit her car, the airbags went off. So I went back, and then when I hit her car, I went forward, airbags blew up at me. So it was pretty bad. So I didn't know what happened at that point. I kind of blacked out, but the witnesses told what happened, especially the lady on the side of the road, because she came running out to help. I get out of the car, started directing traffic. Can you believe it? I'm directing traffic after this. First off, I get on the radio and called, I'm in trouble. Get me back up, right? So I get out of the car, I'm directing traffic. As soon as the first backups arrived, I went over to the side of the car and just passed out. So I don't remember much after that. But the lady said that, she said, he saved my life. She said, because I would have got killed. I would have been standing right there. He saved my life. He saved my life. And she wrote a letter to the colonel and everything. He saved my life and everything. So I never got any word on that. But anyways, I was happy that she was happy, because she visited me in the hospital. I was there for 4 days, another ruptured disc. And a lot of other stuff happened to me, injuries that I could describe, but stuff that I had to live with. And so that was my 3 cruiser accidents, one after the other. And then after that point, I kind of got lucky with cruiser accidents. So
Out of all the stories you have, what's your favorite?
I think my favorite story is the little boy at the carnival. I think that's one of my favorite stories, and I describe it in detail in my book. I Promise to Come Home. But this little boy was at a carnival, and you could look. I was looking at him. It's a big carnival in Revere, and it's, you know how carnivals are, the lights, the sounds. I mean, it's just chaos, right? And this little kid's just looking left and right, and he was panicked. I forget how old he was, 5, 6. He was just a little boy, and he was panicked. And I'm like, oh boy, he's panicked. I knew what was going on right away, so I started walking towards him. Well, he looked at me, and he knew, and he came running towards me with like this, because he knew, and he was taught. There's a police officer. Go. He's helping you. He's your friend. And boy, it makes me tear up thinking about it, because there are some good people out there, and good people that are still teaching their kids. We're good people. We want to help. So anyways, he came to me, and I hugged him and everything, and I picked him up, and I was carrying him, and I asked him who he was looking for. You know what I mean? He says, I'm looking for my mother. I'm lost. And I had been taught by a trooper previously, or an officer, that said, try to calm him down. And one way to calm him down is tell him he's not lost. His mother is. So I did. I said, honey, you're not lost. Your mother is. Let's go find her. And he was all happy, and you could feel his weight sink in my arms, because, oh boy, I'm with a trooper, you know what I mean? I gave him my flashlight. I said, here, you hold my flashlight. I put it on for him, and he's my partner now. We're looking for his mother, and it took a couple of minutes to find his mother, but I saw this lady walking towards us, and she's looking frantically left and right, but she's not screaming. She's just looking, and I just knew, right? I said, I just blurted it out. I said, there she is. Hoping it was her, right? And it was. And he just dropped and ran to her, and she embraced him and hugged him like she was never going to see him again. And it was such a heartwarming scene. And I walked up, and she never spoke to me, by the way, ever. She just looked up and said, thank you. And her tears are rolling down her eyes. That's all I needed. And she walked away, and I walked away. And my faith in humanity was restored, because there's people that like us.
What's something that you're like extremely proud of?
I saved quite a few people's lives in the job. I never got credit for them. People that get awards in the job seek awards. And if you read the book, I don't seek awards. I've been awarded, and I never even showed up, because I don't seek. That's why I got this job. That was my proudest thing. I saved 4 people that I know of. And I write in the book about how I saved them. You know, a couple of young girls that were ready to jump off bridges, and I happened to be there and save them. You know what I mean? My partner and I, Scotty, who's in the book, pulled a girl off the Mass Ave Bridge one day. She was on the railing, ready to jump, and he distracted her, and I went to the other side. I grabbed her arm, and I had her. I pulled her in, and it's a funny story, but as soon as we pulled her in, Scotty, who was senior to me, cuffed her. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is he cuffing her for? She's not under arrest, but she's a threat to commit suicide. She's going to jump again. You can't let her go. So he cuffed her, and it was brilliant, because I did that at a later scene. I learned that lesson, cuff her. You know what I mean? And then call the ambulance, blah, blah, blah. So Scotty said to me, you saved her life. I said, no, nobody may saved her life. He goes, you saved her life. I said, how did I save her life? I says, it's only like a 15-foot drop to the water. He says, what if she can't swim? He says, you saved her life. And I says, like, okay. And I just love that. You know what I mean? That's my proudest. My proudest was when the call came in, there's an accident with injuries, I ran to my cruiser. Didn't walk. I ran, because that was my thing. I wanted to save people. I wanted to be a hero on the job, not to be in the newspaper, but I have little kids, and I wanted to look up to Daddy and say, there's my daddy. I'm proud. That was my thing, to save people and to help people. And boy, I saved 4 people's lives that I know I'm credited with. I probably saved a lot more, but that was my proudest moment on the job. I think my worst day on the job was when I was in Watertown. That's when it all changed. It changed my life forever. And the story goes like this. I was a lieutenant assigned into the Boston area, although I was out in C Troop at the time. I was assigned in the Boston area to be in command of about 40 troopers. We were guarding certain facilities in Boston that I can't name that are on the protected list, because we didn't know that these 2 brothers here were just the two of them. We thought it was a well-funded jihad. So we didn't know what we were facing at this point, but we knew it was organized at some point. So I go in there, and to make a long story short, I'm eating supper about 10 o'clock at night, somewhere in that range, and I hear shots fired in Kendall Square. Well, I'm in Kendall Square. So it took me 30 seconds to shoot over there, and there was MIT officer Sean Collier, and he had passed away. And I knew he was gone. And there's nothing I can do. So what can I do? I'm not an EMT, and they were already there helping. So I said, I'm going to help. I'm going to get out, and I'm going to circle my cruiser until I find anything out of ordinary. I'm looking for anything out of place. There's nothing else you can do. There's no description at this point. So that's what I did. Took about an hour circling, and I ran out of gas. So I had to go gas up the cruiser. Within minutes, we heard, and this is about an hour later after Sean Collier got killed, God rest his soul, the call came in for a carjacking on Memorial Drive. So we shot to that scene, and when I got there was about 9 or 10 cruisers there. They didn't need me, but I stayed there to see what the description was, because that's when the guy that got carjacked jumped out of his car, ran to the other gas station and said, hey, these guys just carjacked me. They're the Saneev brothers, the ones you're looking for. They got guns, bombs. They're going to kill cops tonight. They already killed a cop. They bragged about it. They bragged about the Boston Marathon bombing. So I'm like, okay, we know who we got. We know what's going on. It's a Mercedes-Benz. Well, within about 5 minutes, one of our troopers got on the air and said, and brilliant, thank you, someone call Mercedes. Call their office. Mercedes-Benz can track that car. This is 2013, remember, right? 2012, 2013. I get lost on the dates. And they did. So 5 minutes later, our dispatch comes over the air and says, we have that car. Mercedes has it. It's in Watertown. Well, it gives me goosebumps, because this is when my life changed, right? So I'm a lieutenant. I'm in the car. I don't have my vest on because I'm not guarding anything. I'm just, driving around. I'm trying to put my vest on at 100 miles an hour in Memorial Drive to head to Watertown. And there was 10 cruisers on Stour Drive and 10 on Memorial Drive. You would not believe the amount of response to get there, to catch these two little you-know-whats. So going at 100 miles an hour, they report, Watertown has the vehicle. They're in pursuit. Okay, the hairs on the back of the neck on everybody should be rising, because it's happening. They're in pursuit. They got it. And I know they're going to, it's going down right now. Okay. Heading over there, and I'm, the adrenaline's flying, and I'm sorry, but you can feel this in my voice. I get charged up thinking about it, because I don't tell the story that much. Okay. We're going there, and they said, shots fired, shots fired. Okay. And the guy said, the officer at Watertown, they're throwing bombs at us. So we can hear him keying the mic saying they're throwing bombs, and you can hear the explosions. It's unbelievable, okay? So what's their location? They're on Dexter Avenue. Well, I have a little Garmin on my dashboard. I type in Dexter Avenue, the exact address, number I don't remember, but as soon as I typed it in, the Garmin looked at me and said, you have arrived. I didn't know I was there right. It was there right away. And I could hear the guns and the bombs going off. So that's when my life changed, because I'm here at this horrific scene. You can see the gun flashes. You can see all this stuff, and it's been going on for a couple of minutes at this point. But I'm coming in the middle, but I'm coming in, and the bombs are still going off, and the gunfire, and it was just intense. And I checked my gun, and I checked my bullets, like good cops do, and you cops out there will recognize that. And I run in, and I knew I'm not going to go home. I'm going to die, and I knew I was going to die. That's just what I thought, because I'm going to catch a bullet somewhere. Friendly fire or something, the bullets, you can hear them. They're whizzing all around you, right? So, anyways, I'm looking for a target. I'm getting my eyes adjusted. I'm looking for a target to figure out the bad guys and the good guys, because I'm smart enough to know 26 years in the job at this point, most of these guys out there are undercover. They look like bad guys, but they're the good guys. So I'm just looking to shoot anybody, right? I was trained, do not shoot unless you had a target. So to make a long story short, I never shot that night, because I didn't have a target. But at that point now, when I got there and the guns and the bombs going off, and I'm right in the middle waiting for my eyes to adjust, I heard the squealing tires of the younger son, I have brother, circling, squealing tires, and he ran over his brother. So after he ran over his brother, he took off, and a Watertown cop came running up to me and said, he went that way, he went that way. Well, I looked at him and said, who went that way? Well, I know who went that way. It just wasn't processing. So I ran to my cruiser, and I figured out why he's telling me. I had the only cruiser. I was right there. So, because I had pulled up to the scene, and I jumped to my cruiser, took a right, and there he goes, right in front of me, the Mercedes. And I'm like ready to pull in to get him. and a Boston undercover Crown Victoria cut me off, and then a second one cut me off, and I get in third in line, lights going crazy, chasing this SOB to try to catch him, and it was just, that was the day, the worst moment of my career. I thought I was going to die, and it caused me to have some severe PTSD that I didn't realize was diagnosed later on in my career, and that was the worst day of my life. But it kind of was not the best day of my life, but I'm proud of it because, guns and the bombs are going, because I've been to different scenes and different things, and you're charging in and you're going one way and you're trying to figure out why that other cruise is going the other way. Well, I don't know why the cruise is going the other way. I'm going the right way. That's the type of trooper, lieutenant I was. I'm going in. And I risked my life, and that's it. So that's the worst day of my life, career anyways. So I'll give you two funny stories. I was driving around stopping motor vehicles one day, and I stopped a kid, went through a red light. So I went out to him, license and registration, please. And he goes, sure, and gives me license and registration. And he stops me, and he says, Trooper, would it help if I knew a trooper? So this poor guy, you got to feel bad for these people. He's trying to get out of the ticket. So I said, well, it depends. Who do you know? Well, he says, I know Richard Chase. I said, you do? You know Richard Chase? He goes, yeah. I said, you know him well? Oh, yeah, I know him well. Okay. I says, wait here. Right. So I went back to my cruiser, and I wrote the ticket, $50 fine for red light violation. And I signed my name like I was in third grade practicing penmanship, Richard Chase. And I went up and gave the ticket and never said a word to him. But that guy knew he gave the wrong name to the wrong person. Well, it turns out he was a friend of another trooper, a friend of mine. And he didn't want to throw that guy under the bus. And he heard my name through all the stories. And he threw my name under the bus. Well, he threw it under the bus to the wrong person. So that was kind of one of the funniest stories. But there was one more story with my name. So I was at a truck rollover, not rollover, but it was a truck stuck on Starrow Drive. Anyone that works the Boston Barracks knows, common occurrence. 11-foot truck trying to fit under a 10.5-foot bridge. So I go down there, and this was during the time when one of the news media outlets was giving the state police a particular hard time, and they weren't giving us good publicity. So I was down at the scene. Everyone was blocked from coming down the ramp. All of a sudden, this big guy came down with a camera, and he was 6'10", the biggest guy I've ever seen. And he comes down, and I looked at him and says, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "No one's allowed down here." He goes, "No, the other trooper said I can come down." I said, "Yeah, what's your name?" He says, "My name is Richard Chase." So I looked at him, I says, "You got to be shitting me. I don't know what kind of a joke this is, buddy. Get the hell out of here." I said, I'm not no mood for a joke out of you. Get out of here, right? Now he's looking at me like, what the hell's this guy talking about? He shows me his press credentials. Sure enough, his name is Richard Chase. Great story. So I showed him my name. We laughed, and we've been friends ever since. About 2 years later, I'm off duty. I go to a concert in Boston. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. So we go there, and they're famous for Eddie and the Cruisers, and my wife and kids, we all love the movie. So we go there, and we can't get up front. We can't get close. Who do I spot? 6'10" news photographer Richard Chase. I weaseled my way into the guy, and Richard was high. Bring your family up here. So he pulled me in, and we're in behind the barrier, front row seats at the John Cafferty concert with Richard Chase. So that was kind of one of my funniest stories. Worked out good. If anyone remembers a famous incident in Boston where a Canadian truck driver decided to drink himself into oblivion and ram his truck into the stanchion on the lower deck of 93. That was a good one. So I was at the barracks, and now we get a call, lumber in the roadway. Well, what the hell does that mean, right? Okay. And I go up there. So I go flying up there, lights and sirens. I'm trying to make my way through traffic. I get there. Not only was there lumber in the roadway, there was hundreds of pieces of lumber in the roadway. 2x4s, not 8-footers. They were like 16-footers. Not easy to pick up. Okay, no truck, but I see where the truck hit, and it's not good. One of the stanchions on what they call the high bridge on the lower deck. Well, I picked up the lumber, and a trooper had called a few minutes later and said, I got the truck stopped. So I'm picking up the lumber, and I go down. So I go down to the scene. There's this guy, Canadian truck driver. Okay, so I talked to him. I said to the trooper, anything wrong with him? He says, no, I can't detect anything. He's got a thick accent. So I said, okay, let me see if I can talk to him. So I went to talk to the guy, And I was taught to circle someone when you're standing on the highway. Circle them if you think they're drunk. I don't know, but he sounds slurring his Canadian speech. So I'm circling him. When I finally hit that certain spot, his breath hit me. He was drunk. So I said, sir, you've been drinking? Oh, I've had a couple of beers, blah, blah, blah. So he ended up taking the breathalyzer, and I arrested him for drunk driving. He took the breathalyzer, and I forget what he blew in the breathalyzer, but it was twice the legal limit, and then some at that point. He was really drunk. And they ended up shutting down the central artery for a week. And the press dubbed him the lumberjack. So I was involved with that whole incident. It was written up in the papers. The Boston Herald, the Globe wrote it up. Trooper Richard Chase arrested this guy, the lumberjack or whatever he was. And yeah, that was one of my, that was a pretty good story. My goal on writing the book was to clear my head of the cobwebs and the PTSD. That was my goal. That was my personal objective on writing the book. But my goal was to get it out there for anyone else in law enforcement or trying to get in law enforcement that this is what's going to happen to you. This might happen to you. I suppressed everything and didn't tell everyone the stories that were going on. First off, I couldn't tell my wife. But I should have found someone to talk to and get these stories out. So I didn't live with them because they stack up in your brain. And it's not good. So any law enforcement officer right now out there, especially young kids, talk about this stuff. Don't suppress it. Get it out. Talk to your father, talk to an uncle, talk to somebody, but get it out and make sure you talk about it, because when you suppress it, it's going to come back to haunt you. So that's the proudest thing I am with this book, to get it out there about this what's going to happen to people and what could happen to people. So I ask anyone that can see this book, please, if you read it and like it, pass it on to somebody. I'm not making money off the book. It's only on sale for $18 on Amazon. It's not a lot of money. As a matter of fact, Amazon was pissed at me. They wanted to sell it for $27 to $34, but I refused because I don't. In this climate with people not making a lot of money, I wanted the story to get out more than making money. I'm not one of those guys that pats myself on the back. I wrote this book, and anyone that reads it will find out that I don't take a lot of credit for stuff. Okay, it was a lot of stuff that other people did. One of these stories, I made this big giant arrest, but I wasn't the hero of the story. So you'll find out what the story was. It's fantastic, but I want to give credit to all the guys I worked with. Boy, when I was at the lower basin at the Metropolitan Police, those guys were legit. They taught me all kinds of stuff. When I transferred out, went to the state and met up with a lot of good staties and became friends of mine, boy, they taught me a little good stuff too. So if anyone's watching this that's getting on the job or wants to get on the job, listen. Shut your mouth and listen, because that's where you're going to get the experience. Just listen, please, okay? They'll teach you stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. You'll have to filter that out on your own. That's your intelligence. But take it all in. And that's what I did. So I just want to give credit to all the guys I work with. A lot of the sergeants I worked with, man, they were great guys. A lot of the lieutenants I worked with, I'm going to call his name out. I worked with a lieutenant at the Leominster Barracks when I was a sergeant. His name was Marty Fay, and he was one of the greatest supervisors I ever worked for. Just a cop's cop. I loved him, and I still love him to this day. So there are guys out there that are great guys to follow, and I always wanted to be one of those guys that people said, hey, listen, he's going into battle. I'm going to follow him. I know it's not, Vietnam or World War II, but you know what I'm saying? This guy I'm going to follow. He's going to do and say the right things because he studied. He knows what he's doing. He's versed on this stuff. So I always prided myself on that too, but the troopers that were with me, I never said they worked for me. I never said that. They worked with me because we both had the same gun and the same badge on, remember. My badge was gold, but it was the same. We were both putting our lives on the line. So I give credit to everyone I worked with. I worked with a lot of great cops and a lot of great troopers.